what's next? What's next is essentially the shift in solving problems. Technology has three key attributes that would make sense to apply to solving all these problems we're facing. One is you can scale. And I've already been through this a million ways of how to scale. So I'm not even going to prove that. Just say we get how technology can scale many, many more people into doing something than a small group. The second thing it can do, because all those people, is you can parallel process. This is a server farm. This is essentially which superseded supercomputers. And why? Because people said, if you ask a question to essentially a server farm, you could break up the problem into a bunch of little things, send it to the little brains of these little kind of slow-moving, relatively slow-moving computers. They'd each solve a piece of it, and they'd slap it back to you in an instantaneous second through telecommunications. That's the server farm. That's how Google works. That's how you get that back in a second. Is essentially it distributes your problem and brings it back in like this flash of an eye. So anyhow, but you can start to do that in a bigger way. You can say, so we can start taking all these problems I showed you at the beginning there, and we can start actually breaking even all those problems down, and you can actually scale tens of thousands and millions of people, frankly, around this, working on these things. So that's a way you can start to do things besides just having everyone go to Washington and sit in a think tank and get 10 people in a room. This is a way that you start to do things. Ultimately, though, this is the key one. You could start to break down space and time. Space. So we are now going from a physical meeting here is how we've solved problems from ever. Physical people in the same room. Well, then we start thinking, what would help us do that same meeting but from afar? Well, we can send emails back and forth, which is still the way most people do things. And then we realized, you could actually have instant messaging. Same time you could talk to people. And so then there was Skype. You can open these videos. And so anyhow, what we've had is a proliferation of these little pieces of the tools of we can collaborate from afar. Well, what's happening now is you're starting to watch essentially different. Now you're to the next generation, which is how do we integrate all those things into a different way? And now there's a bunch of startups, like Jive is one of them here. I don't know how do you know these Yammers box. They're starting to say, how do we start to integrate that experience so that all you have to do is use one tool or several tools and essentially can get to the point where you're getting to essentially where you get a virtual meeting here, which is getting close to the subtlety and complexity of physical meetings. That's the goal. Well, the thing is, the technology is getting us close there. It's not there yet, but I would say within 5 to 10 years, we will be able to hold the same kind of what it takes in this physical meeting. You see me, you feel me, we're connecting. We'll be able to do that virtually. And then once you start doing that, you can scale up these problems. Now, the proof of this, and this is how I'm going to end here, is I want to show you an example of this, which is an example of taking advantage of these new tools to do something that is extremely nuanced and extremely complex that is a nice insight into how we're going to get into the future here and solve these things. And this is essentially the virtual choir. What this guy did was he took a YouTube video in which he basically conducted and gave people music, and he had all these people on the internet just let random people essentially audition and send him their video of them singing. And he chose the right ones. He got them to practice. He got them to sing. And they basically came up with, I'll show you a little fragment of this thing. There you get a little glimpse. You notice those are all millennials. Nobody was in the same room. No one saw each other. Nobody gathered. No one paid plane tickets. No one had to buy special equipment. No one did anything. They sat in front of their computer that they already had and basically did their part to do a beautiful, complex, collaborative piece. And that is only one little glimpse at the kind of collaboration and the kind of things we will do together in the coming decade around these incredibly powerful new tools. And with that, I'm going to stop here and say thank you. You've been a fantastic audience.